For just a moment, put down every rule you've been handed about what men want. Let go of the checklists on how to dress, how to speak, how to smile just enough, how to be approachable. Because what we're going to explore today lives far beneath all of that. It is a force so deep, so quietly powerful, that it doesn't simply attract a man. It rewires something inside him. It makes him unable to look away. It makes him genuinely, almost helplessly, obsessed. There is a feminine energy most women carry, but almost none have been taught to activate. It is not beauty. It is not cleverness. It is not endless kindness. It is older than all of those things. It is more authentic, more dangerous in the best way, and far more addictive. Why has no one handed you this knowledge before? Because it cannot be faked. It cannot be bought in a course or copied from a TikTok. It can only be remembered and awakened from the inside. Today, I am not offering you another list of tips. I am giving you 5 sacred truths, 5 keys. Each one opens a deeper room inside your own power. Together, they show you how to stop being the woman he considers and become the woman he cannot forget. Are you ready to step into that room with me? Then let's begin. The first secret. The great lie of fragile femininity. Were you raised to become a shelter instead of an empire? If you've ever believed that love requires you to be endlessly sweet, endlessly patient, endlessly giving, and quiet about your own needs, you are not alone. And it was never your fault. From the time you were small, the world rewarded the girl who made everyone comfortable, the girl who smoothed things over, the girl who became the emotional resting place for others, while her own inner landscape was left unexplored. Without realizing it, many of us constructed a version of womanhood that felt safe, but was never truly ours. A low, socially acceptable frequency, soft, reliable, diminished. Until the day the truth arrived like a cold wind. You gave everything, loyalty, warmth, presence, devotion, and still you were left. Still you were only an option. Let me tell you about Isla. She was 31. Her partner called her his peace, his safe place, the woman who made everything feel calm. She cooked, she listened without judgment. She carried his moods as if they were her responsibility. She had become his emotional mother, his private sanctuary. She thought this was mature love. Then one ordinary afternoon, he simply walked away. No explosion, no long fight. And within weeks he was completely consumed by another woman. Quieter, more self-contained, less predictable, less available. Isla couldn't understand it. How could a man leave the woman who gave him everything for someone who seemed to give him almost nothing? That is when the merciless truth landed. A man does not become obsessed with the woman who soothes him. He becomes obsessed with the woman who awakens him. What looked like love had been self-abandonment wearing a pretty dress. You were never meant to be anyone's emotional sedative. You were never meant to be the endlessly forgiving good girl. You were born to be a living mirror, a force field, an energy that cannot be ignored or casually replaced. When a woman lives from fragile femininity, she broadcasts absolute availability, always ready, always yes, always open. And while that frequency can look noble, it is also predictable, and the predictable never becomes obsession. But the moment you recognize the conditioning and choose something greater, everything shifts. You stop apologizing for your intensity. You stop softening your edges so no one feels uncomfortable. You stop dimming your desire to shine because you're afraid it might scare him. You move through the world as if your energy is already complete, because it is. You no longer wait to be chosen. You have already chosen yourself. And to a man who has spent his life among women who orbit him, this is a revelation. A woman who refuses to be domesticated, who builds an empire instead of a shelter, becomes what Jung called an archetypal force. She neither submits nor simply adapts. She inspires and unsettles at the same time. The deepest pain is not that he didn't choose you. It is that you betrayed yourself, hoping he would. You are finished with that betrayal. You are here to gather every piece of yourself you once abandoned out of fear that you were not enough. If this is stirring something in you right now, a memory of a relationship where you were so good and it still ended, let that feeling stay. It is not a wound, it is a signal. You are ready to stop being the sanctuary for someone who never truly saw your light. You are ready to embody your sovereign, untamed energy without begging it to be accepted. And if that energy drives someone away, he was never meant for the woman you are becoming. When you release the version of yourself built to please and step into the woman who already loves herself, you enter a different dimension of power. You stop asking for space. You create it. The second secret, the power of the queen on her throne. Why does a man become obsessed with the woman who doesn't need him more than the woman who does? Because the woman who doesn't need becomes the one who is needed. You can be beautiful, magnetic, generous, even unconditional in your love. But if your energy is rooted in need, you will never be seen as truly magnetic. You will only be seen as available. And here is the ruthless truth almost no one teaches. A man does not become obsessed with what he has already secured. He becomes obsessed with what he fears he might lose. The woman who does not require being chosen is the woman who is never forgotten. This has nothing to do with games or manufactured mystery. It happens when her entire being quietly radiates one clear message without speaking a word. I am whole. You can add beauty to my life, but you are not the center of it. That message lands deeper in a man's psyche than any strategy ever could. Jung understood that we project the most powerful parts of our unconscious onto others. When a man meets a woman who is clearly the queen of her own universe, complete with her own passions, her own boundaries, her own vision, her own quiet power, something ancient wakes up inside him. Not merely physical desire, a symbolic, almost mythic drive to pursue. He is drawn not only to her body, but to the unyielding field of energy she carries. Most women still believe that if they give more, rearrange more, solve more of his problems, become more everything, then he will stay. That creates comfort. It does not create obsession. Obsession is born from the woman who does not orbit anyone. She has her own sun. If a man wants to stay near her, he must rise to meet her frequency. Consider Leora. She was 36, a life coach with a full, purposeful existence, meaningful work, deep friendships, a calendar that belonged to her. When she met James, he was captivated, charismatic, emotionally intelligent, used to women rearranging their lives around him. At first, Leora held her center. Then slowly she began compromising. She moved meetings. She canceled plans with friends. She gave away her sacred time so she would always be reachable. Little by little, she stopped tending her inner world and started orbiting his. Admiration turned into routine. James never said the words, but his nervous system registered the change. The queen had stepped down and become the devoted attendant of his needs. After a small argument, He simply stopped reaching out. Leora was shattered until the truth that changed her life arrived. The moment I stopped choosing myself so he would choose me, I stopped being his obsession. You already know this. Every time you left your throne for the sake of love, you became a little more invisible. And you also know what happens when you return. When you rebuild your schedule around your own joy. When you reconnect with your body, your intuition, your own approval. When you look in the mirror and say, "This universe is mine. Anyone who enters must honor the temple." A woman who lives as her own queen does not merely attract attention. She commands it, not through looks or performance, but because her energetic throne is solid. Her frequency feels different. She does not chase. She does not demand. She simply radiates. Men who are used to women dissolving themselves for love are startled by a woman whose life is already overflowing. A man's presence in her world is not an achievement. It is a conscious choice. She affirms herself daily, and nothing is more irresistible than a woman who is not afraid to be alone. Stop believing you must empty yourself so he will choose you. Your magnetism lives in how faithfully you remain true to yourself. Return to your passions. Guard your sacred spaces. Stop answering every message the second it arrives. Stop explaining every silence. Stop proving your worth. Live as if your energy is a privilege, because it is. When you inhabit that abundance, he notices. He begins to wonder, am I worthy of her world? That is the precise moment emotional obsession is born, not through manipulation, but because you have become a universe, and no one who has truly touched a universe can casually walk away from it. The third secret, the mystery of your inner ocean. Become a universe he can never finish exploring. A man can forget a touch, a glance, even a body. What he cannot forget is the presence of a soul that led him into an ocean he didn't know existed. A woman who carries real mystery is not performing. She is a spiritual lighthouse that illuminates without demanding anything in return. She does not pour herself out all at once, not as a game, but because she respects the depth of her own being. Here is what almost no one explains. A man's soul does not become obsessed with what surrenders completely. It becomes obsessed with what reveals itself in layers. Jung believed the unconscious longs for connection with the luminous, the sacred, the incomprehensible. A woman whose inner world is alive, who cannot be fully predicted or controlled, activates the part of a man that wants to explore everything and yet never quite succeeds. She is not a short story finished in one evening. She is a 1,000-page epic that only the worthy are allowed to open slowly. Zara was 31, a visual artist. She was never the loudest or the most conventionally beautiful woman in the room. Yet when she entered a space, people felt her. She carried a deep stillness, a gaze that seemed to hold quiet secrets, a voice soft but rooted. When she spoke with a man, she never rushed to impress. She never sought approval. She was simply present, fully inside her own expanding universe. When she met a successful, self-assured man, used to immediate attention, she remained different. She did not message the next day. She did not offer stories designed to keep him hooked. She did not explain her silences. This did not push him away. It made him obsessed. For the first time in years, he could not fully read someone. Every conversation felt like a door opening onto deeper rooms. She shared her passions without emptying them. She offered emotion with graceful restraint. She laughed freely and also held silence without discomfort. What others might have called distance, he experienced as an irresistible puzzle, and puzzles are not ignored. They are solved. Zara was not distant. She was magnetic. Her energy did not shout, "Look at me." It whispered, "Discover me if you are capable." A man becomes obsessed with a woman who does not reveal everything because he senses that behind her laughter lives a story. Behind her stillness live battles already won. Behind her presence stands an entire temple. This is not about deliberate withholding. It is about possessing an inner world, a private language, a corner of the soul that not everyone is invited to enter. A woman like this cannot be explained. She can only be felt, and she is remembered long after others have faded. The fourth secret, the dance of the sun and the shadow. The art of giving your warmth and knowing exactly when to withdraw it so its value is felt. A woman who is always available, always eager, always saying yes, eventually becomes invisible, not because she lacks worth, but because her worth is never experienced through absence. The ruthless truth. A man stops needing what he can always reach. The moment he senses he might lose it, he begins craving it with his whole being. This is not game playing. This is the natural rhythm of feminine energy. Feminine energy moves like the sun. It shines, warms, and nourishes, but it also has cycles. It does not stay frozen at high noon. It has descents, evenings, periods of necessary darkness. And it is precisely in that living shift between light and shadow that genuine fascination is born. Jung spoke of integrating the shadow as essential to becoming whole. The dance between presence and absence, warmth and silence, giving and withdrawing is how a powerful woman integrates her own shadow, not as destruction, but as revealing space. When you understand yourself as the sun, you realize you do not need to shine 24 hours a day to be loved. Real power is knowing when to illuminate and when to step back, so the value of your fire is truly felt. Alara was 29 and in a relationship with a man who was interested but never fully committed. He appeared when it suited him. Terrified of losing him, she stayed consistently warm, consistently reachable, consistently attentive, and every time she did, she lost a little more of herself. One quiet day, she made a silent decision. She would not leave, but she would reclaim her energy. She remained loving, yet no longer perpetually available. She answered when she genuinely wanted to. She kept certain experiences sacred and private. She was present, but with clear edges. He felt it. He felt the light no longer burning exclusively for him around the clock. He felt the emptiness where certainty had lived. That emptiness shook him more than any argument ever could. Arguments create distance. The quiet withdrawal of emotional energy wakes a man up. He began reaching out more, asking more, noticing more, not because she demanded it, but because her energy had become scarce. And what is scarce is valued. A woman who stops giving without measure and begins offering her warmth as a genuine gift becomes a vibrational magnet. A man's soul does not obsess over what surrenders endlessly. It obsesses over what sometimes appears fully and sometimes quietly retreats. In that rhythm, his subconscious links your energy with something he cannot control. And what he cannot control draws him deepest. This is not manipulation. It is an invitation to become sacred to yourself again. When you give everything without restraint, you deplete. When you offer only what truly resonates, you expand. Sometimes that expansion looks like turning inward, closing the energetic circle, so that when you reappear, your light is not merely noticed, it is treasured. The sun does not ask permission to shine, and it offers no apology when it sets. Magnetic feminine energy is cyclical, instinctive, alive. A man does not become obsessed with a permanent emotional appliance that is always on. He becomes obsessed with something that sometimes nourishes him completely and sometimes leaves him hungry, because that hunger teaches him your value. The fifth and final secret: the embodiment of pleasure. Become devoted to yourself, and he will follow the example. Very few women understand this at the vibrational level. Your pleasure is not a luxury. It is your highest frequency. I am not speaking only of physical desire. I am speaking of the quiet joy of being alive, walking down a street with a soft smile already living in your chest, laughing to yourself while making morning coffee, moving through the world with an energy that needs no one's approval because you have already chosen yourself. A woman who is genuinely devoted to her own peace, her own beauty, her own becoming, radiates a frequency so magnetic she no longer has to chase attention. She simply provokes it. Jung said that what remains unconscious appears in our lives as fate. If you never claim your right to pleasure, to shine, to enjoy yourself without guilt, you will keep drawing relationships designed to dim your light, because you have not yet recognized that you are the light. When pleasure becomes a daily sacred practice, your entire field shifts. A man does not become obsessed with the woman who desperately wants him. He becomes obsessed with the woman who is already complete, already in love with her own existence, and who sees him not as salvation, but as a beautiful addition to a life that is already overflowing. The only practice required is devotion to yourself, to your growth, your well-being, the way you tend your body and spirit, the quiet power that needs no performance. After a relationship that had broken her confidence, Maya made one unbreakable promise. I will never beg for love again. I will give to myself first. She kept it. She treated her body like a temple, not for anyone else's gaze, but out of respect. She dressed for her own pleasure. She danced alone in her apartment. She wrote letters she never sent. She spoke kindly to her reflection. She finally took the art class she had postponed for years. She traveled alone. She learned to say, "Today I want to be with myself." Then, without chasing it, everything changed. Friends told her she was radiant. Men approached her because of her presence, not merely her appearance. The man who had once given her only crumbs returned and said, "I don't know what you've done, but I cannot stop thinking about you." What had she done? She had placed herself at the center of her own world. That single act was more seductive than any strategy. A man can meet thousands of beautiful, kind, intelligent women, but when he meets a woman who has fully embodied the joy of being herself, who is not searching to be understood but simply radiating truth, something in his subconscious awakens that he cannot resist. She does not chase, and she does not hide. She moves through life with such self-love that he feels invited into a universe that does not need him, yet has consciously chosen him. That is when genuine emotional obsession is born. Not from her looks or her charm, but from her energy, because she never betrays herself to appear pleasing. She never justifies her boundaries. She never sacrifices her peace to keep someone close. Her energy simply says, "I am whole here. If you come, bring something real. If you do not, I will continue soaring. That, dear heart, is irresistible. A man's deepest longing is not for a woman who will carry him or kneel at his feet. It is for a feminine energy that reminds him what it means to live with purpose, with feeling, with soul. A woman who delights in herself, who reflects abundance, who makes him feel that if being with her feels like this, he does not want to be anywhere else. But first you must become that place, a vibration, a field of safety and aliveness, a fire fed by your own inner dance, a peaceful body, an unguarded soul, a woman who no longer shrinks to fit, but expands to inspire. This is how your energy becomes effortless magic. This is how you stop asking, "Will he like me?" and begin understanding that you are not here to be liked. You are here to shine. Whoever has eyes to see will see. Whoever does not will remain in their own blindness. But you are finished dimming yourself. Now you know, and there is no going back. The moment a woman stops chasing, stops reshaping herself, and returns to her own authenticity, her own pleasure, her own energy, something in her vibrational field changes permanently. She is no longer content to be the safe option. She no longer surrenders her light for acceptance. She no longer asks permission to shine. This is not arrogance. This is awareness. This is the energy born not from need, but from inner magic, the kind that awakens the deepest emotional and psychological obsession in a man, the kind he feels but cannot control, and that energy already lives inside you. You do not need to invent it. You only need to remember it. Today, seal this remembering with your own words. Write it, speak it, claim it. Today, I choose to become the woman who chooses herself, even if he doesn't. Take care of yourself. You are the universe, and the universe needs no one's permission to exist. Before we close, sit with this for a moment. What we have explored is not a technique. It is a homecoming, a return to something that was always yours, long before the world taught you to make yourself smaller, quieter, more digestible. Jung wrote that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Not the most difficult, the most terrifying. Because we have been taught that our fullness is dangerous, that our intensity is too much, that our unapologetic presence will push people away. So, we edit ourselves. We offer a softer, more palatable version. But that constant self-betrayal is what costs us everything, not only in love, but in life. He also said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. How many times have you watched the same pattern and asked, why does this keep happening to me? Why do I always give more than I receive? Why do I attract men who cannot fully see me? The answer is never entirely outside you. The patterns we repeat are the ones we have not yet brought into the light. And the profound beauty of that truth is that if the pattern began inside you, it can also end inside you. You hold that power completely. What you are capable of becoming, the fullness, the sovereignty, the radiant self-possession already living in you, is not optional. It is a calling. Every time you silence it, every time you shrink to fit someone else's comfort, a part of you quietly grieves. So ask yourself, honestly, not for me, but for you. Which version of yourself have you been presenting? The one shaped by fear, or the one rooted in truth? Where are you still waiting for permission to fully exist? And what would shift in your relationships, your energy, the way you move through the world if you decided, starting today, that your presence is not something to be earned or justified? It is simply something to be lived. Your words matter. Your awakening matters. The most magnetic, unforgettable, deeply irresistible version of you is simply the one that is most fully, most fearlessly, most unapologetically yourself.